everybody. Welcome back to another Flipping the Barrel podcast. We are here at the Collide studio in Houston, and we're super thankful to be able to use this amazing studio. So shout out to Collide. And today we are starting off the year with a phenomenal guest, Veronica Foley, who is the Chief Legal Officer at Precision Drilling. She's a fellow Colombian from Medellin, Antioquia. So I'm so proud to have another Colombian who's killed it in the industry and who has really help the stats on female Latinas who are, at the C-suite level, which is very, very small percentage. So Veronica, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, ladies. It is a pleasure for me to be here in such good company.
Well,
Looking forward to this.
I have to say, when you first came in, we already started talking about so many things, which Masa and I were like, okay, we need to get this on the podcast. Like, it's already so good. And I want to go back from very beginning of your story, because Masa had mentioned you're from Colombia, but tell me what that really means. So you're from Colombia, but you didn't end up growing up in Colombia because of things that happened along the journey with your family. So tell us about what it was like in the beginning stages of living there and what happened and transitioned you to move outside of Colombia.
So I was 16 years old when I moved. So it's an interesting time to leave a country and, the only place you really know as a, teenager in the middle of high school. But essentially, my grandfather was always in politics. He was assassinated when I was 5 years old, and that sort of was a big change in my family, right? He was head of household, obviously. Um, but my mother, who was fairly young at the time, um, really took an interest in politics. So in Colombia, politics and universities are basically go together, right? There's always been in Colombia a trend for college students and college professors to be very involved in what's happening in the economy and politics. So my mom at the time was a late college student. I think she had just barely graduated medical school. And she wanted to become more involved in the political party that my grandfather was involved with, and kind of took this big role, at the beginning of her career, also in politics. And a lot of the people within that political party started being assassinated because all of this was happening during the Pablo Escobar cartels, right, and the cartel war. So, Pablo also had tried to run for government. He was ousted out of government. So a lot of people don't know, but he was actually a senator for a little tiny bit in Colombia until he was pushed by the Conservative Party. My grandfather was part of that.
Wow.
And when all of that happened, they became a target. That Conservative Party became a target. And so a lot of the people that my mom was working with for about a 10-year period, the more they grew and the more they became a potential candidate for presidency, they would start to be assassinated. So the year I left, actually, 3 candidates to the presidency got assassinated that year. And so, there were a lot of people were like, Elena, you should take a much bigger role. My mom was sort of interested, but could also see the writing on the wall, and she had 2 young girls. I was 15 and my sister, who's 7 years younger, was 7 or 8 or so.
That had to terrify you, though. I mean, you talk about it like, oh, they're assassined, but like,
oh no,
that's
so
like as a child, you're growing up and around people that are losing their lives because of what they believe or whatever they might be, doing in politics. So how did you feel? Like, how did that change you as a child?
I mean, not very many 15-year-olds go to kidnapping school. So I actually had to go to kidnapping school where, you go and you sit with a specialist and they're like, this is what you do if there's an attempt of kidnapping, right? Like, here's what you do. Like I was obviously the oldest. So if my parents were taken or my mom was taken, I had a hiding place. I knew what suitcase to grab that had all of my parents' documents, like their life insurance, our passports, my mom's diplomas, like all the key, like the deed to the house, like all of that. And then we had like I no longer arrived to school at 7:30 when school started. So we couldn't have the same route every day. So we had to have, some Monday, Wednesday, whatever, like randomly we would arrive at 8 and other days we arrive at 7. We never took the same route to school. my parents bought 2 identical cars, so people wouldn't know if it was my mom driving or my dad driving,
Wow.
right? So like same color, same model, same year. So they went and traded both of their cars, and for about a year before we made the decision to leave the country, that's what my life was, right? And every time my mom, and there were no cell phones, there were no trackers,
Mhm.
right? So my mom would call every day, and she would actually back then
Mhm.
it was a pager. My dad had like one of the good old school pagers where you would just have a little message come through the screen, and she would say, "I'm leaving."
Yeah.
She would never say where she was leaving from, but she would say, "I'm leaving."
Uh-huh.
And then and then she would type a code, like whatever, 6, whatever it was. That meant she was coming home or going somewhere else other than home. And so we would know whether to expect her or not to expect her, right? So
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it was a completely different world. So I think that does jade you, like your brain. It's a
Yeah.
little like my parents' house today has a panic room, which why do my parents who live in Houston, Texas, who have nothing to do with anything, still live in a house that has a panic room? So they build their house, and when they build their house, they're like, "We're building a panic room." I'm like, "Okay, it's used as
Wow.
storage." So
Yeah.
to be real, so
It doesn't leave you. That trauma will never leave you.
yeah,
Like
that
even
trauma.
today, they're like, we need to hide in case someone's after us.
Yeah, like
Like
my
nobody knows
mom.
who you are today.
Yeah, I literally think my mom thinks about this constantly still.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And
I'm
so, I
sure.
mean, a part of that too, like it's left behind. Like I'm the kind of person who is still like, I go to a restaurant or I go to a big event. I always want to know where the doors are, like the
Mhm.
exits are. And like, I never put my back to the door.
Yeah.
Right. Like stupid
Little
things.
things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That like I just do because I am just so programmed to always be facing the door and like finding where the exits are. And,
Wow.
you know,
So at 16, you guys decided like this is probably not a great way to live. It's very stressful. And if you think that your life is at risk every day, there's probably a better way to go to a place like the US and maybe ask for refugee or,
yeah. So we
seek
actually,
asylum maybe.
yeah, we moved political. My parents applied to a couple of places, and Australia was the first to answer. And so we actually lived in Australia in Melbourne for about little under a year before we moved to America.
I love Australia. Why'd y'all leave Australia?
Yeah.
Because it's really far.
Yeah.
It's really, really far
Yeah.
from the. My parents like the Latin culture. Like if you ever
Yeah.
meet my dad, he's like bigger than life, right? Like he laughs and he likes to tell jokes, and he's
Mhm.
yeah, he's just big personality. Awkward in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
Texas, not so much.
Yeah.
There's plenty of those guys. Yeah.
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 So what was it like, coming here at 16, going to high school in Houston, learning the language, a new culture? Maybe in Colombia you felt like everybody knew you. You came from this very powerful family, and then all of a sudden you're like in high school in Houston. They're like, "Who the hell is Veronica? I don't care."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was definitely that. I think two things that really shaped me. One was, in Colombia, if you came from means, you were going to college.
Mhm.
Like it didn't matter really. Like as long as you passed, you didn't have to be a stellar student. You were going to college, and like people just knew. Like my parents were going to get me into the top university because my grandfather went there. All of her
Mhm.
kids. I mean, it was just happening. When I got here, so I wasn't a great student in Colombia. Actually, I got passing grades, but I had bigger things to do.
Yeah.
Right. I too was a little bit like, what else is happening?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I got here, grades really matter, right? And then high school here has a pecking order,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Mhm.
and it's not like the popular kids. I'd never really wanted to be the popular kids, although my only guidance on what United States high school was like was probably 9210, which,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's that. It was really more on, I wanted to be smart because I knew I was smart, like even when I got bad grades at home, my mom would never say like, you're dumb. And she would say like, you're so smart. Why don't you try harder?
Mhm.
Right. Um, but here, like if you were not in AP classes and you were not, kind of aiming to be top of the class, you really weren't going it felt that way. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't going to have a future if I didn't try harder.
Mhm.
So for the first time I had this like, hey, I'm really smart. And if I want to get A's, I'll get A's.
Mhm.
But it was also very hard because I didn't speak English and I was taking ESL.
Yeah.
You know, I was enrolled in all the ESL classes, and all the people I wanted to be with were taking AP chemistry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I was super determined. So that was kind of the first thing that ignited my desire to prove to the world who I could be. You know, I would go to the I was in the end of 10th grade. I would go to the counselors, and when I came back junior year and I was like, I don't want to be in ESL anymore. I want to be in, AP classes. She was like, oh, wait, I thought you were an exchange student. Like, who are you? And I was like, no, I'm graduating from this high school and I need to start to take AP classes. What do I
Yeah.
need to do?
Yeah.
And it was a little bit of fighting against the grid because here I was, an immigrant child, and they were like, who are you? You just moved here. Your English sucks. No. And I was like, oh, heck yeah, you
Yeah.
have not met me.
Yeah.
And so I think that was sort of the first. And then socially too, this idea of where do I want to place myself, right? Like that idea of building a brand and building who you were, it started very early for me. Right. And setting up like big goals that nobody could tell me I couldn't make it.
What were some big goals that you had back then?
I mean, honestly, I just wanted to graduate high school and go to a good college, right?
What was a good college for you back then?
Well,
what was on your dream poster wall?
Well, honestly, the only college I'd ever heard of was
Harvard.
Well, other than Harvard, and that wasn't happening. So here's the other thing: like, you don't move away from college in Colombia. Like most people in Colombia, like you go to the regional schools, and that's it. And actually, the school itself didn't really matter as much as the degree, right? And then that was totally reinforced by coming here. When you talk to other immigrant parents, like, I mean, I wasn't going to study art, and I wasn't going to, I mean, literally there were like 5 choices for an immigrant girl, right? I was like law, medicine, engineering, business, and
that's it.
I don't know. That's probably it. Four is probably more like,
yeah.
Maybe architect if you were that artsy.
Yeah.
So, so that was the other thing. The only school I heard of, my mom had just gone into Baylor.
Okay. It's a good school.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll go to Baylor.
Yeah.
So when you think about how early, so I moved here literally like 2 months before my sophomore year. So caught up on, I had to take summer school math because they put me in like whatever math, and I needed to graduate with calculus. That was like little goals, I was like, I will be in AP calculus by the time I graduate, because I had heard this guy that I liked saying that was what I needed to do. So I was like, okay. So I did. And I mean, it was literally like just small goals. And I had to already so junior year was studying for the SAT, which of course I hadn't seen in my life, and just
Never heard
trying
of it,
to,
probably.
and just trying to learn English well enough so that when college applications were due in a year, I could actually fill them out. Right. I mean, it was really.
So when did law school come into play? Because you talk about, going from a transition of like, I didn't have to make good grades in Columbia to I got to make A's to now what are all these tests? And then now law school. I mean, you have to take like the LSAT and like all sorts of other things you have to pass the bar and to even get in. So what made you want to go that direction?
Of course, being the daughter of a doctor, my mom was like, go to med school. Your English doesn't need to be that good to go to medical school. And I was like, okay. And then I just knew I wasn't really cut out for that, right? Like, I'm like, it's not who I am, but I didn't really know what else. And my grandfather had been a lawyer, and I didn't want to disappoint my mother. So truly, it was that simple. I was like, look, I have a plan though. I don't want to be a doctor, so don't be sad, but I'm going to be a lawyer. And she was like, okay, well, I guess we can live with that.
Yeah.
And then I believed it. I was like, okay, that's who I'm going to be. I'm going to be a lawyer. I mean, when I think about it now, like how ballsy, right? Like you've been learning English for 2 years and you think you want to go practice law in a foreign language.
Reading this many books, writing this many essays.
That's what
it's
law is.
Literally like, are you good in English? You can go into law school. You're good at math? Okay, go do other stuff.
Yeah, like why didn't I pick engineering? I don't know.
Yeah. Oh my God.
it just sounded good.
So where did you go to law school? Baylor?
No, South Texas for law school. And again, so then I had a little bit of a crisis when I graduated law school. I was like, can I really do this?
Mm-hmm.
And so I applied to all this like super schools like Harvard, Yale, Stanford, because I was like, hell, why not? And I didn't get in. And so I thought, oh my God, my life's over. I don't know what else to do. And I started teaching because my actual degree was kind of worthless. Not worthless, but it was not easy to get I didn't have a practical degree, right? But it was okay because I was going to law school. So then my only option was to teach. So I started teaching ESL, 4th grade. And everything I've ever done before that had to do with kids. I love kids. And I decided I love kids still, but I cannot handle administration and all the protocols. And I'm like, I've gone through this. This is not how you teach English to little kids.
Yeah.
And there was so much that needed reform, and they were so close to the idea that I thought, I got to be my own boss, or I got to do something where I have a little bit more power and career freedom, because otherwise I just wasn't meant to be told what to do all day.
Yeah. I love it.
And so I was like, I reapplied to all the Houston schools, and I actually said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to apply to night school. So I actually started law school at night. I halfway through the semester applied to law school, and I got in with a scholarship. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to see if I like it. Right. And then if not, I'll pivot. I'll take the MCAT, or I'll take the GMAT, or maybe go to business school or something else. And I loved it. It was definitely for me. I did really well. And so that summer I caught up with the regular class, and then I started full time in the fall.
So when you graduated officially as a lawyer, did you go straight into the oil and gas industry?
No, I was top of my class. And so it's usually most lawyers want to go to what is called big law. Right. And at the time it was V&E, Fulbright, and Baker Botts. Those were probably the 3 largest law firms in Texas. So I was lucky enough to get internships with both V&E and Fulbright. I clerked with both and got offers from both. And at the end, for me, it came down to people, like
culture.
Yeah, culture. The Fulbright people were down to earth and extremely good litigators. Fulbright had a really good reputation for being like the top litigation firm in the country, or like at least in Texas. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a litigator. So
when you actually got into the business and you started working, you had a family kind of early on, got married young. So, and all I can think about is like when I watch Suits on Netflix, the law,
yeah,
I love that show. They work like all the time, all
They do.
night. Like, I don't even understand how those people have a life. How were you able to make it possible? Or like, what was those days like in the beginning?
I mean, it was crazy. The good news is my husband has always been a superstar, like from the beginning. We met when we were 18, and he's always been my biggest champion. And so he was working at Moody's in New York, actually. And so we moved to New York when my daughter was born. And if you think Houston's bad, New York is 10 times worse. Like, I mean, the hours we were putting in, the amount of travel, and whatever. You're all young, so you're also at the partner's whim. So if he's like, you're working this weekend all weekend to get this done, you're like, yes sir.
Yeah.
But my husband was a super rock star, and I always believed in hiring nannies just because of the flexibility it gave me, and that it gave our family. So we very early on like hire a nanny, and I mean, she was a rock star. She also drinks the Kool-Aid, which is like, I'm here to help you, whatever you need. But then when I got pregnant with my second, it really did become a little unbearable, right? My husband also was itching to do something more, right?
Were you still in New York at this time? Okay.
So I got pregnant with my second in New York, and also we were living in like a tiny apartment. So we're like, how are we gonna have 2 in New York? This is not realistic, right? We need to move closer to family if this is gonna work. So we transitioned back to Houston with my second, and hire a nanny again, and move right close to my parents and my sister.
Which is where in Houston?
So we grew up in Bel Air.
Okay.
So my parents are in Bryce Heights. I mean, now we're not there anymore, but when the kids were little, we lived there until the kids were like 7, 8. My second was 8, and my other one was like 10. Yeah,
Mhm.
so we lived there all through elementary. They did all their elementary schools in the Bel Air public schools, which they loved.
Mhm.
And they walked to school, and like they loved kind of feeling like a small community.
Mhm.
And my parents were right next door. My sister was right next door. We've had the same nanny. Actually, this year she told me, I've been with you now 18 years. I was like, oh my God, yes, it's true.
Wow.
So,
Becomes part of the family.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's part of the family. And in fact, like the reason she started this conversation was because what she wanted to say is my son graduates in May. And she's like, what are we going to do going forward? Because she still comes to my house every single day. Because, and my kids, they told me the other day, stop saying nanny because
Yeah.
we're like 18 and 20.
Yeah.
I'm like, she's not our nanny. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
she still kind of is. Last I checked, you still leave your towel in the bathroom. So,
Yeah.
so anyway, I was
Oh my
giving them
God,
a
I
hard
love
time
that.
back.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially my son, like she just adores my son. She
Mhm.
calls him Tomasito, and it's like the whole thing. Yeah.
So how did you get in oil and gas?
So I had a lot of clients in oil and gas. Both my parents, I told you, are super entrepreneurial. And I really kind of wanted to own a business, right? Whether it was, I start a business, or I wanted to see something that was grown from the beginning and that you could see. Because when you're outside counsel, you give advice, but then you don't know where that advice goes. Like a
Mhm.
client calls you and he's like, I need this. What do you think? Can we do this? Can we not do this? And you just, you go, you research, you give them the law, and then you give them your analysis, and then they make the decision of
Mhm.
whether to, right? You say, here's the risk if you do this, here's the risk if you do that. But you really don't tell them what to do.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You're just like, here's the
A
risk.
mediator, like here's everything that you can do,
Yeah.
positive, negative.
You guys decide what you want to do.
Mhm.
Where's your risk reward balance? And I was like, I want to see what happened to that. Like,
Yeah.
I was always the one who would call the client. I was like, so what did you guys decide to do? Did
Yeah.
you fire him? Did you
Yeah.
file a lawsuit? Did
Yeah.
you, right? Like,
You wanted to be on the other side.
I
of the
wanted to be on the other
business.
side.
Yeah.
But also, career wise, I'm always been a firm believer that it's important for both partners to develop at the speed they want,
Mhm.
and my husband was ready to take on more responsibility as well, right? And so he wanted his career to advance. And I was like, you know what? It's not sustainable. I can't work or bill like 100 hours a week,
Mhm.
and take on this next responsibility if something doesn't give in our house,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Unless we want like maniacs for children, which was
Mhm.
not the goal.
Yeah.
So, I said, I'll take a step back too. Like, I want to do something new. I want to reinvent my career. And so I feel like pretty strategic on where I went. I had a couple of choices. One of them was actually Baker Hughes, to go, and it was always going to be oil and gas because that
Mhm.
was what most of my
And you were
clients
back in
were.
Houston as
Mhm.
Yeah,
well.
it
so-
just made sense. But I did not want to be pigeonholed in a role, right? Because I was a litigator, and so most of the opportunities in house for a litigator tends to be either you go and you manage litigation, or maybe something on compliance.
Mhm.
But I wanted much broader experience because I was like, what's the ultimate goal, right? Where do I want to be in 10
Mhm.
years? I was
Mhm.
like, I want to be general counsel somewhere. And so I, on purpose, picked a role that, even though it didn't pay the most at the time, it was the role that was going to help me grow the most,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
My boss back then was also awesome. She was very much about training and developing, which I liked. And so I knew she was going to let me do lots of things. Like whatever I wanted to try, she'd say yes.
And what company was that?
That was Precision.
Oh, that was Precision.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I always thought it's a 2-year gig, right? Like I got to go, I got to get transition, like
the
transactional
experience within the
experience. Yeah. And like understand oil and gas and blah, blah, blah. And then I'm going to move to the operator side. So,
What kept you all these years at position?
so opportunities, right? Actually, so at some point I actually got an interview for Hess, for a job at Hess, and I got the job, and I went to my boss and I was like, boss, I'm leaving. It's been 2 years. So
Yeah, this is my plan.
yeah, this is my plan. And she was like, don't leave. You're awesome. I think you're ready for more responsibility. Let me put all these people, like, I want to put more lawyers under you, and I want you to take over like all the operational. And I was like, oh, okay. Say more.
Yeah.
And so, every time I kind of wanted to jump ship, something happened at Precision where they were like, stay. We want you to stay. We want, like, they saw potential in me and they were committed to that growth.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then the general counsel left, and I went to the CEO, and I was like, I want to be the next general counsel. I was 37 years old,
Wow.
and I've been at the company 5 years, and I started as low as it can be. And I
What
was
did he
like,
say?
he said, okay, I I don't know what we're gonna do yet, but thank you for letting me know. And I said, I want to take you to lunch when you're back in when you're back in Houston. He was going to Canada, and I was like, and he was like, okay, I can't promise you anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I know. I just want you to sit with me,
Mm-hmm.
and I want you to hear me out. And he was like, okay. And so I went home and I built a 5-year plan. Oh my
There was no
God.
ChatGPT back then.
No, there was no
Hey, build this
ChatGPT.
five-year
Yeah,
plan
yeah,
for
yeah,
me.
exactly.
Yeah, I literally called every. So at the time, a lot of my friends were starting to make partners
Mhm.
at Big Law, right? And of course, they want to develop their book of business. And I was like, I want this job. It's to your advantage that I get this job because
'Cause I
I
know
will send
you.
you work,
Yeah.
and we need to get this job. And she was like, so a couple of my friends that had like different kind of expertise were like, because at that time I still had things on my resume that I hadn't had a chance to fill the gap with,
Yeah.
right? Like quite big, important things. Looking back, they seemed like nothing back then because I
Yeah.
was like, I can totally do that.
Yeah.
Just no big deal.
Yeah.
And so I like enlisted all these soldiers. I was like, girls, we're going to do this. And I was like, help me build this 5-year plan. What does this look like for a department? Like looks like this, like. And I had built really, really good relationships within the precision business as well. And I was
Mhm.
like, guys, I want this. So what do we need to do? I was like, I would call payroll, and I was like, okay, tell me about this. And then I would call like accounts payable, and I was like, how much should we spend on legal fees? Okay. How much, right? How many lawyers do we hire? Like, give me all our vendors worldwide.
Yeah.
Right. And so I started basically thinking like, I can do this better, cheaper, and faster.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Wow.
then I started leveraging those relationships. I was like, okay, if Kevin says he'll support me, will you support me? Will you support
Yeah.
me? And I mean, a lot of people knew that I was sort of the predecessor's right hand already, right? That I could do a ton of things, but there were things that I just wasn't supposed to because it wasn't part of my job description.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I started building those relationships, and I was like, would you help me with this gap? Would you help me with this gap? So what I proposed at the time, so I built this 5-year plan, and I said, don't make me a general counsel. Don't hire. Here's a gig. I don't want you to hire somebody. Don't hire somebody above me.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make me interim. Just give me a BP title. Give me the VP of legal. Put legal under me. Take some of this other stuff that my boss had that, because I mean, at the time, which I have backed that and some more, but, she had like other departments underneath her. I was like, let's divide some of those departments, give them that way. Everybody feels like they won a little.
Mm-hmm.
Give me legal and compliance, and let me try it out for a year and put me under this other executive. Give me to the CHRO,
Mm-hmm.
right? Put me underneath him for a year. And if you're happy with me after a year, we can talk about a GC title. I was like, you'll save tons of money because you don't have to pay GC.
Yeah, all
right?
of the.
We were also going into the 2014 down. So that she quit end of 2014. She went on to a massive opportunity.
Yeah.
But 2015 is when
The big downturn.
Yeah, the big downturn. I was like, we're hitting a downturn. You don't have to, for a whole year, you can test me out. Basically, I'm the deal.
Yeah.
You gave him no option but to
I was
say
like,
yes.
50% discount.
Yeah, 50% discount. You don't even have to give me the title yet. Not the benefits yet.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Right? Like,
Okay, so I have a lot of questions around that.
Yeah.
One, I guess, where did that's a very specific type of person to ask. Most women that we have spoken with, not necessarily on this podcast, but in general, are like, oh, I'm afraid to ask for this. Like, that's just in general, most women.
Yeah.
So obviously you're an outlier when it comes to asking and getting what you want, because that's usually, it's like, did you ask is like the first thing.
Right.
And then second, it seems like from your story, you've got all these friends who are like, we're going to support Veronica. And yeah, when I think about promotions in a corporation, it's very cutthroat. A lot of people want that title and want that job. So how did you deal with the people who weren't supportive of you or who were like, yeah, I'll support you, but we'll backstab you in the back?
Yeah, that's
Because that's a
tough.
lot of truth.
Yeah.
That
It
is a lot
wasn't
of
like,
truth. Oh no,
we're
no,
all
for
gonna
sure.
give it to you.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
it's
that's
like
a lot of truth.
I've
That's a lot of
seen
truth.
in corporations,
Yeah.
everyone is hungry. At least the high achievers
Oh, yeah,
for
for
that.
sure.
They're not just gonna let Veronica
Yeah.
take it at 37 years old.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, for sure. And I think, I think I was a little naive, and honestly, I think that helped.
Uh-huh.
To be
You have to be
honest.
delusional to be
Yeah.
successful.
I think I was a little delusional, right? Like I would go to these people and be like, "Will you support me?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, of course we will." And
Yeah.
I mean,
And you're like, oh yeah, okay, they did, but really, they're probably like,
They're
no.
supporting that candidate.
yeah. And they're
Yeah.
behind my back. They were probably saying like, "Oh, she's not ready. There's no way."
Yeah.
blah, blah,
She's
blah,
so
blah.
young.
Yeah. So I mean, I do think I was a little delusional, and look, even within my own department, like when I took it over, there were people who wanted the job, who were older than me and had
Yeah.
been there longer than me, and were also having conversations,
Mhm.
and it was tough to even manage them, right? Because of course they're like,
Oh yeah.
it
'cause
should have been me.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
what are you don't
Mhm.
know anything about this, and now you want me to teach you?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's been under my purview for this many years, and hello, get a book,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
whatever, governance for dummies, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not gonna be me. I'm not gonna spend the time teaching you.
Yeah.
So that first year was tough because I also had like tough personalities and tough departments, and some people who were very willing to be like, "Oh yeah, come on, girl, I'll teach you whatever you need," and other people who were like, "No."
Mhm.
Mhm.
And then even within the department, like outside of the department, there were some people who were like, she can barely speak English. Why are we bringing somebody from the outside who is way more qualified?
Yeah.
Um,
Especially in a drilling
yeah.
service company where I'm sure the percentage
How
of
did
women
you-
in general were really low.
And like, how did you like mentally overcome those situations and not default to, okay, maybe all the people are right. This wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think my mom is always a huge champion, and so was my husband, right? And so whenever I would have like super tough days, like one of the things that we kind of said for a long time was that we would live on one salary as much as we could, right?
Mhm.
Because we never wanted to put on the golden handcuffs, right?
Mhm.
Like we never wanted to be like, I am tied to this job, and if it's not this job, we're gonna file for bankruptcy or have to give up the house,
Mm-hmm.
right? So whenever I would have really, really tough days, I would go home and I would tell Aaron, like, I may need to quit. And he was like, do it, quit. That's fine. And he would remind me, he said, you have to choose between this house and the nanny, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had motivation, right?
Yeah.
I was like, oh God.
You're like, okay, I need to go back to work.
Yeah, I was like, the stay and work, but at least like not, I always knew I was going to work, but at least I knew I could quit.
Yeah.
Like if things were that bad, I could quit. And I've always told him the same. I was like, if things get that bad at work, you just quit and I'll support the household. And then like, I believe in you. You'll find another job, probably even better job, and throughout our careers, we always told each other that. And I think that was a huge lift off my shoulders.
I would say that's such a powerful mindset. And I'm glad you shared that because I do think the golden handcuffs really is a thing and people live miserable in a job that they hate for 30 years because of keeping up with the Joneses. Like they bought the house, the cars, this, their kids go to private school, like all of these things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then you're miserable. So it's really cool. What made you guys think that early on? Because I wouldn't say that's the average couple. Most people live above their means.
Yeah. So when I first met Aaron's so funny. He's awesome. But he said, Sunday school, the song, people, they will always start like, okay, let's sing a little song. And okay, Aaron, you can pick the song today. And the song he always picked was Take This Job and Shove It.
Take this what?
It's called Take This Job and Shove It. Right?
Okay.
It's some good old Texas, like, take this job and shove it. Like, it's some stupid, Western song.
Yeah.
But I think that was always, it wasn't
It
even
was his
my
mindset.
mentality.
Yeah.
But he was always like, hey, freedom has no price. And for me, like seeing my parents kind of come to this country and start from scratch, like I always had sort of that, hey, everything you have here, you have today. Like
It'll be taken away.
it could be
in a
taken away
second.
tomorrow,
Mhm.
right? Like when we first moved to Australia, we lived in government housing,
Mm.
right? Like my
Yeah.
dad moved like a week before we did, and he went to the Salvation Army, and filled our house from everything from the Salvation Army, right? And like, of course, what happens when you send him into the Salvation Army? It's like 4 forks, all different kinds, 4 plates. He doesn't care. He's like, he's not trying to even match the plates. He's like,
Yeah.
4 plates. And my
Yeah.
mom's like, did you buy soup plate? Or did you get soup plates? He's like, oh, no. We
Yeah.
don't eat soup though, do we?
Yeah.
Like, and so that's what I moved to after being,
very nice.
yeah, like maids, drivers, nannies, like
2 cars,
yeah,
all
like,
this stuff, like
and all of a sudden, like, no car, no furniture, no central heating. Like, we literally had like
nothing.
right?
Mm.
Yeah. So I always knew, like, hey, everything you have physically is all temporary, right? Like, as long as you have your family, it would always allow you to make the right choice. So
I'm so inspired by your entire story. It's
Yeah.
amazing when you look back at all the things and you think like in a lifetime, and like your life is not even like halfway over, and it's like in a lifetime you have experienced all of that. It's wild to think about like the progression and like what has all happened. And I think now like C-suite executive, chief legal officer, you're on 50/50, you're 50 women to watch for boards, so many things that you did, from this girl that was in Colombia that really didn't care about school to then getting into the US and realizing that like if you're not top 10%, then you're really nobody. And just like the whole process to then law to then now being top of I would say like top tier in the profession that you're in and working for Precision. So to end, I'd love to ask you, like, looking back, like what would you tell your younger self, or what would you tell those people that might be in a position like you were when you first started?
I would always say set big goals. We just had a strat session, and we hadn't had one in a while because for a while we were all just, paying debt and kind of getting out of the hole, and all of a sudden we have like a great balance sheet.
Mhm.
Like, the world is our oyster. With so many opportunities. And when I started the first session of the strat session, I said, the one thing we can't forget is to dream bigger, dream
Mhm.
big, dream and believe that you can do everything, right? Because my mom always said, if you aim from the moon, maybe you get hang on a star, right? Like,
I love that.
I love that.
so yeah, just aim high and believe. I mean, drink your own Kool-Aid. Yeah.
Yeah, because nobody else is going to drink it for you,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So believe in yourself.
So, and be brave too.
Awesome. Well, Veronica, I'm just amazed by everything. Like I
I love your
said,
story.
Thank you
love your
guys. Thank you
story.
guys.
Really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. And thank you for sharing the whole journey with us. And I'm sure there's so much more that's going to happen within these next few years. So excited to keep watching you. And for all those that tuned in today, thank you for listening to another episode. You can find Flipping the Barrel on flippingthebarrel.com, Flipping the Barrel on LinkedIn. We have an upcoming event coming up in March, Pursuing Greatness. So please keep out for that. It's on March 26th. It's our women's event. And we look forward to seeing all y'all soon. And thank you again, Veronica.
Thank you
Thank
guys. It was
you.
amazing.
Thank you.